The first project first targeted towns for which little or no vital records existed, and it's now expanded to over 140 towns. So how do you find out if your town has been included? You go to our inventory page, and this is an example of what you would see on the inventory page, or go to our homepage, scroll down, and you'll see a link to the inventory page. You can search by town name, or check at the bottom of the page for a list of towns, then search for the inventory findings. We've inventoried every detail about which maps and records exist as step one in the process, just a list of what they have. After that, our researcher, who was originally Brian Lennius, and now we're expanding to other researchers, would examine the actual record in the reading room to see if they have useful genealogical information, which means names, dates, and a house number. If they don't, we don't digitize it. Some records would have information about the town, but no personal names. Then we either have the record book photographed, or we do an on-site indexing of the information, and then the results go up on the All Galicia database, which I showed you before. Let's see, we're searching here. This is the town of Bobrica. You can see on the bottom, it's a sample search, and on the right-hand side, description shows you what we found. If you note the first item, which was recently photographed in Lviv, it was just a description about the deaths of the Jews to someone in the town. But once we got it digitized, we found that it provided insights into the relationship between the Jewish community and the Catholic community of that town, and it reads the actual document. We, the undersigned of the Jewish Kahila of Bobrica, testify that the Jewish community borrowed the sum of 3,000 zlotys from the church and priest, and we will pay interest of 7% annually personally to the hands of the priest starting from the 20th of June, 1750. We do not want this transaction noted in the city or church documents, and we don't want to pay for their registration. We also leave the right to repay this sum at any time. So this dates back to the 18th century and is a valuable accounting of what went on in the town so that you don't need to speculate about the relationship. You have an actual document telling you about it. The land records contain information for individual households about their holdings, taxes, and production of the land. These records were created across the Austrian Empire on at least 3 occasions, 1785 to 88, 1819 to 1820, and 1817 to the 1860s. And I think you have 3 slides of translation, so you can go through them while I stay on this one in the Hebrew. The last survey, 1817 through 1860s, resulted in the creation of extremely detailed cadastral maps for the entire empire that show individual yards, houses, barns, roads, fields, and plots, synagogues, and more. While technically not genealogical records, once a researcher knows the name of a household head and/or a house number for a family, it's possible to create a wealth of family history from these maps. One can literally retrace the routes an ancestor would have driven by horse from home to the fields, or walked from home to school or the synagogue. So, after registers of births, death, and marriages, cadastral maps and land records are probably one of the most valuable resources for reconstructing one's ancestral town or village. They help us recreate in detail communities that existed almost 2 or 3 centuries ago in concrete and imaginative ways. What is a cadaster? Cadaster is defined as an official register of the quantity, value, and ownership of real estate use in apportioning taxes. Cadastral maps still exist today. If you wanted to build a fence on your property and you wanted to know the border of your house and your neighbors, you would go to a land map, and a land map is basically what a cadastral map is. The Josephine Cadaster was initiated by an edict in April 1785, ending in 1788. Then the Franciscan Cadaster came after that in 1790, and Leopold II canceled the tax reforms and disbanded the cadastral commissions, but Francis I in turn recognized the need for a new tax system and ordered the empire-wide cadastral survey in 1817. The decision to include mapping as part of the cadastra meant the process would take a very long time, and indeed it did. And when you see the quality of these maps, you'll understand why. It was performed over years. by creating and updating a series of finely executed land surveys. And during the mapping process, numerous texts were also created to record information that could not be included on the map, creating these sets of landowner records we're going to see now. There were 3 types of maps: Feldskizzen, Indikationsskizzen, and a full-color cadastral map. There were several versions leading up to the final map, but often they had different information. So here we have an example of one town over a span of years. And you can see that the lower color map has less houses than the upper map. The span of years, I believe, is about 10 years. And on the side of the black and white map, you see the names of the people close to the market square where it was too hard to write the names on the map. You can see many Jewish names, especially towards the bottom, mixed with Polish names. The numbered diagram provided on the title page of the map is essential to begin reconstructing the maps. They're photographed in sections. This grid can also help you determine what section represents the area where your ancestor's house or parcel was. This is the cover sheet for Dobromil. This is the Feldskizzen from 1852. You can see it was a much smaller town, so we have less grids to work with. Only 5 sections. And then we'll see a larger version of the map here. You can see in the lower left, the synagogue is written synagogue. Sometimes it was written by a Jewish star. And we do a close-up here. Cadastral maps are works of art in full color with great geographic detail. But they usually don't display the names of the property owners or the house numbers, which can be seen on the sketch versions of the maps. They may only have the land parcel numbers. There was a building parcel number, the land parcel number, and the house number. If someone built a barn, the barn would have its own number, the house would have its own number. Here we have Rosedal, 1850, and this is the first cover page of the Rosedal map. This cadastral map contains parcel numbers, not house numbers. But you will still find much useful information on every version of the map. Now we'll see a very interesting one, which is the Bells cadastral map. You can see I've written 2 synagogues, but we'll zoom in on that so you can see that better. You can also see this quality is somewhat faded because it had some water damage. That's another reason why we feel a sense of urgency to get these maps, because at any point they could disappear, be damaged in a flood, fire, mildew. So here you see towards the top the Bells, Jewish synagogue, and here we have the synagogue buildings, 2 of them with Jewish stars on them. Below that, you can see the writing sideways of the Gemina for the Jewish community building. And now we have one of my towns, which is Zhimailov. And this is the overview of the town. And this one was scanned. That's why the quality is better than the ones we took photographs of. And we'll zoom in on this as well. The lower left is the castle. But here we have the market square and the shops and the stalls. And in this case, there's a detailed map where the names of the people who ran these shops and stalls is listed. And in this case, the very small houses, these, were where the townspeople who worked for the Polish magnate landowner lived. This happens to be my grandfather's town, and in his siblings' vital records, instead of recording a house number for the place of birth, it was written Obszy Dwór, which meant on the grounds of the estate, meaning that his family did not have their own house, but lived in one provided by the nobles. And here is a close view of the market square, where the names of the shopkeepers are written. And you can see on the side, if you can get a look at that detail, that many women ran these stalls, and this is one of the rare maps that provides a listing of everyone working there. I think you can see some of those names written on the side, some in pencil and some in ink. And what you're looking at is that same detail which is denoted by the letter A in these three versions of the map.